In this video, we're going to take a look at how to work with Secure Store target applications. So I'm going to start here on the Central Administration homepage, and we'll go and find our Secure Store service application. So under Application Management, Manage Service Applications, and you can see in the list here is Secure Store Service. I'm going to click here. And here in Secure Store, we have a list of 2 target applications. You can see one here with a long GUID attached to it is used by Performance Point Services to manage its unattended service account. And we have a second one that was created to manage the unattended service account for Visio services. Now, a target application in Secure Store is a method of mapping one or more users to a particular set of credentials. Now, let's take a look at how that works. I'm going to click New to start creating a new target application. Now, this is the first page of the Target Application Wizard where we set some basic settings. The first is the Target Application ID, and this is a unique identifier that you use to refer to this target application from other locations, such as from Excel services or Visio services. The display name is just a friendly name, and there's also an email address. For target application type, there's a fairly long list here, but it breaks down into 2 basic types. There's individual and there's group. An individual target application maps a single user to a set of credentials in Secure Store. A group target application maps a group of users to a single set of credentials. Now I'll go ahead and choose group here because that's the most commonly used, and I'm going to click Next. Now on this page of the wizard, we specify the type of credentials that we'll be storing in Secure Store. You can see the default is Windows username and Windows password. There's a number of other options that you can choose for these fields. For example, if I were using SQL Server credentials, I would choose username and password. If I'm accessing an application that requires different fields or more fields than just username and password, I can add a field. And I can choose what type of field it is. Perhaps there's a PIN or something like that that I need to use. And I can add as many of these fields as I need for the application that I'm accessing. And all of these fields will be stored encrypted in the Secure Store database. So I'm going to delete this. And I'll go back to my standard username and password and click Next. On this page, we specify target application administrators. So this would be any user that you would want to be able to administer this target application. You can also use an Active Directory group here. So for example, I might use my farm admin account. The members of a target application are the users who are authorized to use the credentials that are stored in Secure Store. Now you can list users individually, or you can include an Active Directory group, or if you wanted to give access perhaps to everybody, you could type all authenticated users. Now once you've configured these 2 settings, click OK, and you can see here's our new target application that we just named Target Application ID, friendly name. Now the next thing that we would need to do is to set the actual credentials that get stored in the Secure Store database. So I'll click on the drop-down list, choose Set Credentials, and you can see here it says credential owners are all authenticated users. That's what we typed into the members box in the wizard. And then here we would specify the actual credentials that we want to store in Secure Store. And once we do that, using this target application, our credential owners, in this case everybody, would be authorized to use these credentials. Now, these credential owners will never actually see the credentials. They will only be used on their behalf by a service application such as Excel services or Performance Point services. But Secure Store will allow those service applications to use these credentials on behalf of the credential owners. So I'm going to click Cancel here, and let's take a look at a practical example of this. I'm going to switch over to my computer running SQL Server, And I'm going to come down to Start, All Programs, Microsoft SQL Server 2008 R2, and I want Management Studio. Connect to the database engine, and I'll expand databases, and you can see I have this database called Contoso Retail DW, and this is a retail sales data warehouse database. Now let's say I want to write some reports in Excel using this database, and I want to publish them to SharePoint Server, and I want a particular group of users to be able to access that report and refresh the data in that report. So let's take a look at how to set that up. Now I'll start by switching over to my domain controller, and I'm going to come down to Start, Administrative Tools, Active Directory Users and Computers, and I need two things here. I need a set of credentials that will have access to that database that I can store in Secure Store, and I need an Active Directory group containing the users who I want to give access to the reports that I'm going to write. So I'll start by creating the data access account. Right-click Users, New, User, and I'll call it Retail Sales Access. I'll use the same for user logon name. Click Next, type a password, and I'll deselect User Must Change Password Next Logon, and I'll make this a non-expiring password as well. Click Next, click Finish. So I have my Retail Sales Access account, and this is the account that will be used to actually access the database that we were just looking at. And next, I'll create a group. Right-click Users, New, Group, and I'll call it Retail Sales Users. And click OK. And of course, I need to populate that group with the users who should have access to the reports that I'm going to write. So I'll add Joe Frank and John Woods. I'm just going to right-click, Add to a Group, Retail Sales Users. Click OK. It says I've successfully added them to the group. And if I go down and take a quick look, here's Joe Frank and John Woods. So I'll click Cancel, and I'll switch back to my application server. Now we need to create a target application to map that group of users to the credentials that we created. So I'll click New, and I'll call this Contoso Retail Sales. And for display name, I'll type Sales Database Access. And I'll go ahead and use my Farm Admin account for the email address. And because I have a group of users that I'm mapping to a single set of credentials, I want to choose Group, click Next. Of course, we are using Windows credentials, so I'll leave the default here. Click Next. For Target Application Administrators, again, I'll just use my Farm Admin account. And for members, we want the Active Directory group to which we added Joe Frank and John Woods. And of course, that was Contoso Retail Sales Users. And I'll click OK. Here's our new target application. Now we have not yet associated it with the data access account that we created. So that's the next step to actually set the credentials. Click the drop-down, Set Credentials, and of course our credentials are Contoso Retail Sales Access, and type the password, and click OK. Now we've set the credentials for our Contoso Retail Sales target application. Now it's important to remember what credentials you've used here because they are stored encrypted in the Secure Store database, and there is no way for you as an administrator to actually see what they are at this point. So it's important to make a note of what credentials you actually used there. Now the next thing we need to do is to actually give those credentials access to our data source. So I'll go back to SQL Server, and I'll expand Security, right-click Logins, create a new login, and of course we want to use Contoso Retail Sales Access. And then under User Mapping, I want to choose my Contoso Retail Data Warehouse database, and I just need read permissions, so I will give it DB Data Reader access. Click OK, and our credentials stored in Secure Store now have access to the data source. So let's switch over to a client computer, and I'll go to Start, All Programs, Microsoft Office, and I'll go ahead and open Excel. And on the Data tab, from Other Sources, from SQL Server, it's the Contoso SQL, and I'm logging in here from Excel using my Windows account. The Excel client application does not use Secure Store, but Excel Services will use Secure Store after we publish the workbook. So I'll log on using Windows authentication. Choose my Contoso Retail DW database, and I'll just go ahead and take the Customers Table view. Next, Finish, and I'll do a Pivot Table report. So here in Excel, I can go ahead and create my report, and then on the Data tab, go to Connections. Here's my database connection, Properties, Definition, and here we have Excel Services Authentication Settings. And if I choose this, and I choose the SSS option, this is where I want to type my Secure Store Target Application ID. And as you may recall, we call our target application Contoso Retail Sales. Click OK, OK again, and here's just warning me that I'm changing the authentication settings. So I'll click Yes, close this out, and once I've finished my report and I publish it to SharePoint Server, when users try to render it using Excel services, it will attempt to use the Contoso Retail Sales Target application to refresh the data in the spreadsheet. And as you recall, we specified a group containing only Jill Frank and John Woods as the members of that target application, so only they will be able to actually refresh the data when the spreadsheet is rendered using Excel services. Other service applications, such as Performance Point services and Visio services, use Secure Store in a similar way. So to recap what we talked about, a target application maps one or more users to a set of credentials that are stored in the Secure Store database. Those users are known as the credential owners or members of the target application. Secure Store allows SharePoint Server service applications to use the stored credentials on behalf of the credential owners. The target application ID is a unique identifier associated with each target application. The target application ID is used to reference a particular target application from within SharePoint Server. Now, examples of where you might need to specify a target application ID include Excel Services Authentication Settings in an Excel workbook, the Excel Services Unattended Service account, in SharePoint Designer when configuring a BCS connection, and Power Pivot Data Refresh settings. So that's a quick look at working with target applications in Secure Store. You can leave feedback on this video or any of our TechNet content by going to the TechNet topic and clicking the rating and feedback control at the top or bottom of the page. Or you can send feedback to docbi@microsoft.com.